in and day out at Mar-a-Lago.
A fringe minority who hates this country, bringing communism to our shores.
They destroy life and freedom and family.
Radical, atheist, Marxists.
These radical left lunatics want to interfere with our elections.
They think they can continue to steal elections.
The election that we all knew was stolen.
If we don't have a fair election, right, then we don't have a country.
You can get all that and more at Mar-a-Lago. Over the years, Donald Trump has reaped the financial rewards for turning his private club into the center of one of two of America's major political parties as it morphed into an authoritarian movement. Times reports this, quote, "In this gilded echo chamber, Trump enjoys unwavering devotion and collects the staggering price of admission." Records reveal that profits, quote, hit a peak in 2017 as the club added new customers, including the U.S. government, which paid for bedrooms used by Secret Service agents and liquor drunk by Trump's aides, without losing its existing ones, like the charities that rented out the club's ballrooms for fundraiser galas. But many of those charity customers began to flee Mar-a-Lago during Trump's presidency. Since Trump left office, however, Mar-a-Lago's profits have shot up again, even as the club has been in the headlines for its role in both the New York civil case and one of several criminal cases against Trump. The company Donald Trump keeps and what it ushers in with him if he's reelected in November is where we begin today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. New York Times investigative reporter David Fahrenthold is here. His byline is on that reporting we read from. Also joining us, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard and former RNC spokesman, host of the Bulwark podcast, Tim Miller's here. David, take us through what you and your colleagues are reporting.
Well, what we found was a real wholesale shift in what Mar-a-Lago is and who it caters to. Even when President Trump got elected, it was mainly still aimed at the Palm Beach society. It was set up to serve rich people who live in Palm Beach and the events that they went to. So there were a lot of Red Cross balls, Salvation Army balls, really, large charity events. Most of those groups began to leave after 2017. Because of what Trump said. We all remember he said there were very fine people on both sides of what happened in Charlottesville, that violent rally. So those charity customers start to leave, and the Mar-a-Lago's profit margin goes way down. What we've seen is that while he was president, but especially since he's been president, that a whole bunch of new groups started to come in, both political campaigns, including his own campaign, but also a lot of other, sometimes very new MAGA-aligned groups, nonprofits or political groups that have events there, and they've more than replaced what he lost when the society customers left. In fact, Mar-a-Lago now appears to be more profitable than it has been at any time in the last 20 years.
I mean, the elephant in the room, I guess there are a lot of elephants in the room. It's a room full of elephants, but it's obviously the scene of serious felony crimes. It's where he stole and refused to return classified documents. Let me show you what one of the witnesses, a former, I believe, former employee, maybe still works there, of Mar-a-Lago, had to say about the intermingling of the official and the sort of sordid memberships.
There was a member, Anthony Pratt, who he flew in the night before.
He's an Australian billionaire.
He finishes his meeting with the former president, gets in the car, and his chief of staff says, "How did the meeting go?" Pratt, without saying, just says, "He told me," and it would be, U.S. military, classified information of what he told them about Russian submarines and U.S. submarines. And that's really all I remember hearing, and I went, what? I'm thinking this. I'm in the car, I'm like, did I just hear that? So it wasn't like, oh, the meeting went well, we talked about it. He went straight to the point. He told me that the U.S. subs and with the Russian subs and, something that would more than likely, in my mind, be classified.
So it was clear to you that he was basically seeking access to Trump.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
David Fahrenthold, there's an echo of the reporting that's just sort of your hallmark of exquisitely reported and detailed investigative reporting, but you can't read it without worrying about what Mar-a-Lago would become if Trump were to prevail in November. Can you just pull that thread for us a little bit?
Yeah, the Mar-a-Lago, the people that are there, and especially the people that are paying him, it's a specific brand of Republican politics. And it is now, what we would have described as the right fringe a few years ago, now moving closer to the mainstream. But the positions they hold are things like, January 6th was an inside job of the federal government. The 2020 election was stolen. Pizzagate, this conspiracy theory that pedophiles in the Democratic Party are killing children. All those things are real in this world. Obviously, they're in real life, they're all false. It's that kind of sort of apocalyptic, conspiratorial, and often just wrong reality that is sort of suffuses the place and that Trump lives in now and encourages them by taking their business, but also by showing up at their events and accepting their awards. So what he's done there is take this far right fringe, the people that are paying him there, and help them move to the center of the party, which is him, right? The center of the party is just physically him. So by bringing those people around him, he's given them access to power and a path to even greater influence if he wins in the fall.
Von Hilliard, Trump is involved in a little bit of a two-step with Project 2025 not because he doesn't agree with everything they're for, but because he sees how polarizing and unpopular a lot of what they're for is. He can read a poll. He sees that he's got some political wind at his back right now, and he knows that Project 2025 is a vulnerability. Project 2025's leaders are intermingled in this fringe sort of cohort that Trump is one and the same with now. Can you just talk about this move to, the fringe seems to understate it to the extreme?
Right. I think this is sort of the two ways that Donald Trump is trying to play this. In a lot of ways, he is not closing the door on anybody like a Michael Flynn or a Steve Bannon. The door is open as it has ever been to some of these right-wing figures who have made very more than questionable statements in the past. On the other hand, there is suddenly, 4 months out from a presidential election, there are serious questions about the implications politically about some of the policies that some of these individuals have spoken out loud or written on paper that Donald Trump has now, by association, become affiliated with. And I think the interesting part about Project 2025 specifically, Nicolle, is the fact that I was going through just this afternoon before joining you some old speeches of Donald Trump. And back in 2022, when, folks were maybe not listening to every speech of his, I was going through one in April of 2022. It was at a Heritage Foundation dinner down in Florida where Donald Trump was the keynote speaker. And he was talking about the Heritage Foundation. And this was his exact quote, "This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America, and that's coming." Donald Trump giving a tip of the hat to the work that Heritage Foundation was putting together in the form of what would be known in early 2023 as Project 2025 and that 900-page document, a policy roadmap here. Donald Trump, though, 4 months out from the general election, and despite his close associations with those authors of it, is now understanding that a majority of Americans, at least on some of the policies, are not keen on some of what is written inside of that very policy.
Well, I mean, Tim Miller, this is where it's too late, right? The goose is cooked. This is who is running the RNC platform policy process, Russ Vought. He is also one of the key authors of Project 2025. They're one and the same. They are indiscernible. And I understand that his base will believe whatever lies he feeds them. But Trump is, unfortunately now playing for voters beyond his base. Talk about the liability that is Project 2025 and David's reporting on the sort of crackpots that frequent Mar-a-Lago.
Well, clearly Trump knows its liability. That's why he's trying to walk away from it. I think that's pretty significant reporting right there from Vaughn. I mean, it's something that we all know, but having it be out of the horse's mouth that he says that these guys are going to do this blueprint, I think provides more ammo to the Democrats, to the forces that are trying to stop Donald Trump, because these aren't popular policies. And I think the other reality is we know these two things are linked, right? Because a lot of these officials that are around the Heritage Foundation and other groups are the types of people that are going to Mar-a-Lago. They're the types of people that would staff a Donald Trump administration. We know that Donald Trump is not a stickler for details, that he's going to be not going to be the one worried about who, is the deputy undersecretary that is enforcing these rules at HHS and, at Department of Homeland Security and all these scary, policies that the Heritage Foundation and others are laying out. I do want to add just one other layer to this. And I think that he gave a speech last night at his other club at Doral. And just, a lot of names that people are familiar with, like Vaughn mentioned Bannon and Flynn. But he shouted out from the stage another name, Laura Loomer, somebody that he has had his photo taken with also recently. She was recognized from the stage last night. This is a person that said on her podcast that she wants a white ethno state. She has been unapologetic in saying that she is Islamophobic. She has advanced conspiracies about how mass shootings are false flags aimed at taking our guns. It is important to understand who the people are going to be around Trump, who's going to be at Mar-a-Lago, who's going to be in his ear, and who's going to be staffing his administration. And so, because Trump is Trump, right, and he's a lot of word salad, I think it is incumbent on everybody to listen to the words of these people that are going to be around him, both at Project 2025 and at these kind of hangers-on like Laura Loomer, et cetera, that are around him at his various Florida clubs.
I mean, Tim, I need you to say a little bit more, because I think hangers-on, right, is an understatement. I mean, she is so toxic to the kinds of voters that Trump is doing things that make it clear that the people around him think that next week is about a grab for the independent voters, some of whom moved away from him between Charlottesville, the insurrection, and the conviction, right? So he shaved off some of the toxic edges so that he can stand there and say things like, I won't take away a woman's right to choose. Yes, he will. His code is leave it to the states. The platform also removes a ban on marriage equality. They eliminate language that's been in the Republican platform saying marriage is between a man and a woman. Laura Loomer is like 10 train stops beyond right-wing extremism. Say more.
Yeah. Laura Loomer tried to run for Congress and was rejected by Republican primary voters who usually like to choose the craziest SOB in the race. So that shows you how extreme these people are. This is to be acknowledged from the stage. For Trump, it's not just like she was at an event or in a photo line, right? Trump is on stage last night in Doral, and he's complimenting her and he's shouting her out. Like, this is somebody that is an unapologetic white nationalist, somebody that is an unapologetic conspiracy theorist and Islamophobe, right? So that's just one example. I think it's important to talk about her, right? Because people know, Flynn, Bannon, who knows who will actually be around. What we know is these are the type of people that are going to staff this next administration. These are the type of people, to David's reporting, who are going to be around him. That's what I meant by hangers-on. Who are going to be around him at Mar-a-Lago and have their voice in his ear. It's not going to be responsible public servants. It's not going to be experts on subject matter. It is going to be far-right extremists that have gone much further than even Trump has gone in his rhetoric, and they're going to be the ones implementing the policy and influencing him. And I think that's the critical thing to understand about a Trump 2.0.
Vaughn, the disorienting element of the Trump story is that he is successful at sort of moving the frame, right? Moving the Overton window. So where Matt Schlapp and CPAC was so galling to people who watched it, and Matt Gaetz, he's now surrounded by something totally different, not people who are ex-government officials, ex-policymakers, political, whatever, and they were all viewed as extreme and politically toxic in the moment. But this new group and the characters that are at Mar-a-Lago and in David's story are just an entirely different crowd.
And I think that's why there's an entirely different conversation also who would join the administration, not only at the secretary level, but also at the agency head level in 2025. And I think, though, if I may,